Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Web and the World, a podcast and newsletter exploring how the internet is changing culture, economics, politics, and more around the globe. I'm your host, Ted McCarthy, and it's been a while, so welcome back. It is 2025. I hope everyone's having a good or at least sane new year. This will be going out around the time, probably right after Donald Trump is president again, so that's something. I have nothing else to say to that. It's fucking something, man. So anyway, welcome to the podcast. This is part of a newsletter by the same name. You can find that newsletter at webandworld.substack.com. It is a Substack, newsletter thing. Usually it goes out as a newsletter. Usually I write. But every once in a while, we have a podcast like this when I have someone I want to talk to and think you guys would want to talk to and hear from as well. So that's what we have today. As always, Substack is probably the best place to find us. If you sign up there, you can get the newsletter and occasional podcasts in your inbox whenever they go out, which is a little less now because I'm working on a book. And if you're open to commenting, sharing, subscribing, all that good stuff, it really does help us. It tells me that this work is meaningful. It helps us find new listeners and readers. So all that is incredibly valuable. So you can subscribe at Substack. You can follow us on, if you're listening for the podcast, whatever podcast platform is your preferred one. So on to today's episode. In just a minute, we'll welcome Justin Ledbetter, who's lived and worked a ton around the Middle East and is creating something called Palestine Skating Game that I think is just badass. Justin is looking to hire an Arabic creative director to lead the charge for the game and raise some funds to keep it going, so I'm hoping we can get some more ears on the project to help. This also feels like a good time for the episode, given that a ceasefire in Gaza has finally been called, though it's hard to be truly hopeful about Palestine's future right now. As some readers know, this topic is near and dear to my heart. I lived in Turkey right after college and have traveled all around the Middle East. I visited Gaza in 2015 and 17 to mentor startups with Gaza Sky Geeks, a startup accelerator and tech training organization that does amazing work. Justin and I talk about the game at length, but for now I'll just say it's gutsy and cool, and I love it. Think of the game as something like Tony Hawk, except the protagonist skates around Palestine, graffitiing the big, ugly concrete walls that separate Gaza and the West Bank from Israel, and must avoid getting shot by Israeli Defense Force soldiers while doing it. It's spicy. The game is still in prototype stage, which is why Justin's raising funds and trying to hire a creative director to finish building it. But we'll link to the game's Instagram and show notes, where you can see a demo and download a playable prototype. There's women in purple headscarves skateboarding and rollerblading, realistic modeling of the oppressive concrete wall, and a ton of great modern music from around the Middle East. Part of why I love this game is the counter-narrative it presents to the usual portrayals we see of the Arab world, and also because it's a gutsy, activist, pro-Palestine game that might just break through to some of the young male crowd that helped elect Donald Trump. And it's also helping employ coders and designers in Palestine and Lebanon who really could use support from the rest of the world right now. One quick note before we begin. This conversation will sound uncomfortably like two white guys talking at length about the Arab world, because it is. But Justin works exclusively with coders and designers in Palestine and elsewhere in the Middle East, and I met him via a Gazan friend named Doa, who I met years ago through Gaza Sky Geeks. She used to work with Justin on the project. I actually wrote about her in the newsletter last January, after her family's house was destroyed by an Israeli bomb. Luckily, she was okay, and they worked to raise funds to get her and her sister safely back to Egypt, where she's staying now. Doa is no longer affiliated with the project, but I'm glad I was able to convince Justin to join in her stead. So, without further ado, thank you, Justin, and welcome.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks for having me on.
I hear New York is brutally cold right now. Is that true still, or is it better?
Yeah, I'm at home and wearing snowboard pants underneath my main one, so I'm definitely feeling the cold right now. So
ready to go hit the slopes as soon as we're done on the call.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's actually really good they're definitely very warm.
That's good. So thank you for talking. I'd love to hear, so I mentioned a bit what Palestine Skating Game is, but not really at all. I'd love to hear in your own words, if you're able to describe, what is the premise? What is this game meant to be? So I guess also, we can't play it yet, right? There's pilots, I think?
No, there is, actually. There's a prototype.
Okay.
The level's not finished, and the gameplay isn't finished, but it's complete enough that you can, grind and shoot paint. You can shoot paint at the soldiers and at the tanks and stuff. They don't, die or anything. They just fall down. But that part of the game is functional. It's been functional since July, basically, and we're just we now have one coder based in Gaza who's making changes to it and just trying to finish up things.
You do have a coder based in Gaza.
Yeah, we have been raising money on the premise of hiring people in a long-term way and just trying to be sustainable about it. And this guy, his family, basically, they said they needed $1,000 a month to survive, and send them over $1,300. And if we get more money, we'll probably end up sending them $2,000 a month or something like that.
Cool, very cool.
Because they actually they have they do know people who could also use help. So they're
of course
sending more over.
I am really, we can get to it. I'm really curious, what that looks like to work from Gaza right now. But can you maybe describe just at a high level, like what is the game? Like what does it look like?
Yeah, of course.
And what platforms is it on?
Well, so we're going to start with PC, but it's
Okay.
Yeah, we start with PC. We just changed the controls for like versions on like PlayStation or on Switch or whatever. We just have to. It's fairly simple to get it onto other platforms. There's stuff you have to do, but it's really not going to be an issue. And the gameplay, if you've ever played Jet Set Radio on the Dreamcast or Xbox,
I've not, sadly.
yeah, it's not the most famous game, but it's one of the first like truly artsy games with. Cool. It's a skateboarding and graffiti game. It's like Tony Hawk. You're skating and you're running away from the police, basically. There's not a lot of tricks per se, but you'll be doing things like you pick up graffiti cans and then you spray paint an area, then you run away to the rooftops before the police can catch you, and then you go and do it all again, basically. Cool. And that's kind of the gameplay loop of this game, except you have a Splatoon-esque paint gun, basically. Okay. Which means that instead of just painting like static 2D textures, which is what, a lot of these old games on the PlayStation and Dreamcast, you had to do that because you couldn't have a full paint simulation, and now you can. Okay. Whatever paintballs you're shooting or whatever, you can literally just paint anything in the game, basically. I see. You can actually like do kind of like art instead of just showing up as like a representation of painting. You can actually like paint with it a bit. Yeah, basically. Cool. And it's quite a leap from what, older games let you do. Very cool. And the protagonist of the game, is it always a woman? Well, we're probably going to have like 3 or 4 main characters. Okay. Honestly, if we have the resources in the end, we'll probably have maybe 10 characters that you can choose from, but cool. Like if any plot and character stuff, we'll probably focus on like 3 characters just to not get too overwhelmed. Sure. But showing different styles and fashion styles that people don, that's one thing we can definitely do. So very cool. Yeah, I mean, my understanding of it is the clips I've seen at least are like a woman in like a headscarf skateboarding, graffitiing, and like trying not to get shot by the Israeli Defense Forces. Yeah, that's basically what it is. And very cool. That is playable. So okay. I think that's really, I just love, part of why I love this idea is just there's so many elements of it, right? Is like showing women skateboarding, graffitiing, not getting shot by the IDF. I guess there's stories that don't get told much, I think is part of why I like it. It's definitely going to be, I guess, the graffitiing miscreant, the story, right? Who's, escaping cops and causing trouble, but not in like an overtly harmful way, basically. I mean, this is just that story just transplanted to the setting, basically. Okay. Can you maybe share a bit about like how this got started? So honestly, I saw that show We Are Lady Parts, which was out on Channel 4 in Britain. It's also on NBC, but it's a show about an all-female Muslim punk band in London. And it's basically about like a PhD in biochemistry who is a, Muslim hijabi woman. She's a closeted folk music nerd and she plays guitar very well. And she goes and joins this punk band full of, people who are not very much like her. Okay. And, so she's the only one who's like Muslim, I guess. No, they're all Muslim. They are. Muslim. Okay. So I guess one of the tensions in the show is between, her and her like more traditional Muslim friends, or like honestly she has this group of friends that are like all ambitious Muslims who are all like beautiful and perfect looking and all this, and then she has the Lady Parts group, which is the punk band, which is full of women who are they're Muslim, but they're distinctly more they might be ambitious, but they're more ambitious in creative ways, basically. And to go through it sets up a pretty interesting template for just talking about like what's actually going on in the culture. And I have to say that I'm somewhat apart from this. Sure. But I have religious stuff in my background, but it's not Muslim specifically. So, but definitely like those sort of immigrant things going on, and like those sort of tensions between what does a good immigrant person look like, I guess. That's something that I definitely identified with. However, a lot of it is stuff that would be better served by specifically a Palestinian writer or a Muslim or Arabic writer. Sure. Yeah. So I guess I thought you'd worked with Gaza Sky Geeks before. No, I just started this project. I really just, I found a few collaborators at first, but I really just started modeling stuff. Okay. I started we have like about 2 kilometers worth of Israeli wall in
Okay.
the game. So that's the Israeli wall that's present in all along the West Bank, but especially in Bethlehem and Ramallah and
Okay.
I guess parts of Jerusalem. But yeah, I mean,
2 kilometers of Israeli wall.
yeah,
Just
and
like,
the graffiti
yeah.
on.
Okay. And that's like accurately modeled based on.
Yeah, we have like 200
Really
pieces that
amazing.
were actually on the
Wow.
Israeli wall. And it changes over time because, it's been up for about 20 years now. And, there's just all sorts of pieces that have come and gone. There are a few that are, considered relatively timeless and people tend to leave them alone. But, yeah, it's a hodgepodge of things that have been on there in the past 20 years. But trying to place them fairly accurately to where they, geospatially were or are. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So does the game take place mostly along? I remember I thought it takes place in a few of these cities, right? But they happen to be kind of like near where the wall is.
Yeah, so the wall it's not, the locations aren't necessarily tied to the wall itself, but like if we so we haven't done anything for a Gaza level yet. We might have some assets for it, but we haven't done the level itself.
Sure.
And that would be away from, well, I mean, there is a wall around Gaza, but
but you can't get near it.
Yeah.
Compared to, like graffitiing, it would be a terrible idea.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from a Gazan point of view.
Well, at one point, I think it was actually illegal to graffiti the Israeli wall as well, but then Banksy just started doing it, and people just flocked.
Interesting.
Now, like no one really thinks even twice about graffitiing it now. It's
really. But did Banksy actually, like, as far as you know, is he the first person to kind of do it? At least like in a legal, accepted way?
I mean, there were no internationally famous artists that did it. Assuredly, there would have been Palestinian artists who did do it. And
yeah, of course. But then I guess, I could see like Banksy does it and they're like, well, we can't like get rid of a Banksy thing now. This is art.
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, fuck. So we left that up. Maybe we have to leave all this stuff up too. That's very interesting. I was just thinking it's interesting. Like the white guy comes in and he's allowed to do it. And they're like, okay, fuck it.
Yeah.
But he's also famous.
Yeah, it's honestly.
He's also a famous artist.
Probably a good observation, honestly. I would not be surprised if that was some of the thought there.
Sure. So is this like, have you been to the West Bank or Israel at all?
Yeah.
You have? Okay.
I went to the West Bank in about 4 or 5 years ago. And I got to see a lot of the stuff that was there, including Banksy's Hotel, which is a real thing.
I would like to see that.
Right? Yeah, we have a version of it in the game.
Yeah, I think I actually looked it up because of the game. Now that I think of it, I think I saw the game description, like, what is the Banksy Hotel? And then, can you share with listeners what that is?
Of course. So it's something that not all Arabs necessarily like it.
Okay.
Per se, so it's not exactly it's not beloved by everyone, but it was an interesting place to visit for sure. He built it he basically like took over a building in 2017 that was next to the wall.
Okay.
They filled it with his art and with some Arabic artists' art as well. They designed these boutique hotel rooms basically, and I mean, basically, it's they're very pretty. It's kind of it's a hell of a concept. But you walk in there, you see what it looks like on the outside and on the inside, and you kind of get it immediately. They call it the walled off hotel, like Waldorf Hotel.
Oh, that's funny. The walled off. Okay.
Yeah, and it really is. Yeah, you walk into the lobby and you see there's like at least 10 to 15 Banksy pieces. He must have made it with other people, but they're all really interesting. You see, they have like security cameras that have been knocked down and destroyed, mounted on the wall like deer heads, for one thing.
Really?
Yeah, and they have like
interesting. I like that, mounted on the wall like deer heads. That's great, actually. Yeah.
There's like a coat of arms, except it's sledgehammers.
Okay.
Like crossed, like
like a coat of arms, like swords or something would be.
Yeah, okay. Basically. And then they have, I don't know, like a Roman bust with like a tear gas canister with cotton smoke coming out of it. There's this Roman bust with like a Palestinian protester's handkerchief around the guy's mouth and blocking the tear gas. Basically. They have a portrait of Christ looking nervously up at a red targeting dot on his forehead with drones overhead. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, everything that's in the lobby of this hotel is just exquisitely done. And I didn't get to visit, the rooms themselves. I decided not to do that. But, the pictures of them indicate that, both his works.
They're similar.
Yeah. And there's like one of them that I think is it's like some artists, some Arabic artists came in with all this, what was it? Put all this, Islamic art style tile all around the room and in the bathroom and everything. Just, decked it out, swagged it out with, all this artistic stuff, basically. It's a fantastic experience, and then you go through the museum and they all the stuff that they have to say. I don't know, you come out of it pretty shaken up. So,
Sure. I mean, is it like built like next to the wall?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay, so it's just like directly next to the wall. Because that's what I remember looking. I thought the rooms you could almost like look into Israel,
Pretty much.
like almost over the wall because you're basically there.
One of the rooms is high enough that you can basically peer over the wall. They have a little telescope next to it. Actually.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, that's funny. More surveillance.
Yeah.
That's okay. Interesting. Okay, so you were there. Was that before or after you had the idea for the game? I'm guessing that was before.
After.
It was after.
Before. Sorry. Yeah, before. It was. Yes, I had the idea much longer afterwards, and honestly, I hadn't thought of anything that I necessarily wanted to do. I mean, the experience was certainly a lot. I mean, there was a lot to see. I just couldn't think of a coherent way to put it into like a real game or story yet. I mean, I was actually thinking of doing like a Palestine pinball game.
Really?
But, I mean, I did some of the work for that, but honestly, this idea felt a lot more like a skating game with actual people and, human experiences just seemed a lot more, not just marketable, but also more meaningful generally.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like also there's like the whole history of like punk and skating and kind of rebellious. Like there's a lot there that I think speaks to kind of a lot of what's going on.
Yeah. No, I mean, so Jet Set Radio, the game that we're sort of basing this off of, and Tony
that does
Hawk.
Look familiar, by the way. I looked it up. I was like, oh yeah, it looks familiar.
Yeah. I mean, all those games from back then, they all were kind of cherished for their soundtracks, and that's kind of what
you wanted to kind of be able to do that again.
Yeah. I mean, like a pinball game, I mean, fine, but there's not necessarily as much that you can do with that in a, like artistically, there's, where's the fit to have all this music and art in there? It doesn't necessarily have that fullest fit, I would say, but something resembling a Tony Hawk game or resembling the Jet Set Radio games, there's definitely room within that concept for some really good music. And, just immediately starting to look for music from the region, there was clearly a lot that could be done.
Yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff, actually. I've been trying with the newsletter. I usually do like a song of the week, and I've managed to find some pretty cool, like there's like a Gaza rapper I found.
Yeah.
There's some pretty good.
Was it that kid?
Is it like MC Abdul?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this guy's pretty. He's like 9. I was like, okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff out there, and it's there's like 2 or 3 Palestinian rappers that would be excellent for this. But in places like Cairo and Istanbul and Beirut, there's
sure. I mean, there's tons of music and
I
saw Mashrou Leila like years ago. I mean, Mashrou Leila, I really like that.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, they're like gay. They're basically like big on gay rights in Lebanon, right?
Yeah, they're definitely more.
They're really good.
They sort of have to. They're not necessarily like sly about it, but there is definitely more of a being in Beirut. Have you been to Beirut?
Yeah, I was in Beirut actually in 2019, right before COVID.
Yeah,
I love Beirut. Beirut's cool.
Yeah, it's a beautiful city. No, it's an amazing place to be. You sort of get the sense there that honestly, I feel like they've developed like forms of queerness and just like, I don't know, cosmopolitan feminism, I guess, that seem to be more, just everyone seems more cultured than any American ever will be.
I mean, I learned about it. So I lived in Turkey in like 2007-8.
Oh, really?
And I remember people then would call Beirut the Paris of the Middle East, which it's kind of like a put down because it's like, why can't Paris be like the Beirut of the West? But that was how it was framed. It was like, I think the connotations that are like a very cosmopolitan, hip, cultured place. And I felt that in Beirut for sure.
It's hard to not see that in the place. I mean, you go there and it's just like, it's really hard to walk away from the place thinking anything other than like, there are a lot of really cool Arabic creatives here. And there's a lot of creatives from really around the world, but especially there's especially the Arab world and a lot of European people who just come there and hang out basically because it's cheaper than living in Europe. So,
and a lot more fun in some ways.
It seems like it. No, it's there for like 2.5 months, but there was some.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
It wasn't long, but it was enough to take in the culture and
When was that?
That was almost a year ago. So I went
okay.
there basically in December of 2023. And I then went to Cairo afterwards we raised a bunch of money to get Doha out of Gaza. And we did that in I was in Cairo mid-February, and then she got out in April. So.
Okay. And she's in Cairo now, as far as you know?
Yeah, she's out in the boonies.
Okay, but like Egypt somewhere.
Yeah, I think she's got a family I forget exactly where they are, but they're probably an hour or two away from Cairo. But yeah, she had family out there and she didn't want to stay in the city, which I think coming from Gaza, it just seems like I think she wanted to be in a smaller place.
Maybe something for more, yeah. I did want to ask, so the person you have working for you in Gaza right now, like, what is their situation? Like, are they in a building or, like, how do they, yeah.
So at least as far as I know, believe their house got bombed, but everyone survived, which is not the usual thing that happens. And I believe they've taken in some other families as well, basically.
Okay. But, I mean, he has, like, does he have, like, steady internet?
Evidently. Yeah,
Okay.
I think a lot of people do there.
Okay.
I'm not really sure how to, I haven't asked too much about their situation because I'm not sure how much he wants to
share
divulge all the time. But he had a cousin that was shot by the IDF. That happened. He was like 22, and
his cousin.
Yeah, I mean that's like one of the major things that we have right now to deal with. So
yeah, of course. I mean, I've been talking a lot with Gaza Sky Geeks, which is, I mean, so I haven't actually described this to listeners yet. Like, Gaza Sky Geeks is, and especially was, a tech accelerator based in Gaza that would bring in people, train them in tech, try to help them build a startup, get funding. They transition a lot to doing outsourcing and trying to build up like outsourcing work and like remote work. Like you have this person, I guess, in Gaza. They're in the West Bank now. And they've told me they have a lot of people who dial in for the West Bank. They basically switched to the West Bank because their buildings were destroyed early since October 7th of last year, or whatever, 2023 now. They moved to the West Bank, but they said they do have a lot of people dialing in. Some of them seemingly from like tents on like laptops. But I think at least the people I talked to said like most people dialing in are just kind of like joining classes. Like they don't have employees working.
Saad has a solar panel.
Really?
Yeah, he has like 5 hours a day to code with, and he's just decided to do it. I mean, honestly, it seems like I don't think they want to just like sit around and wait to die.
No, I mean that's what I've been hearing from people. Is like, I mean, of course, it's just like you get bored.
I mean,
you want to do something.
This hasn't stopped at any time, So
yeah,
they're going to be thinking about what can they do to just like persist, even though obviously the food and aid situation is not really getting better. So
yeah, of course,
which is one of the main things we have to think about. So
yeah. Speaking like back to the game, I guess I have my own guesses of this, and you kind of like alluded to it, right? Talking about like the making a skating game versus a pinball game.
Yeah.
But like, what is your feeling around like why something like this is valuable and important? I have my own guesses, but I'd love to hear your take first.
Well, I think it does depend on what we emphasize and how we do it, because the writing is not set yet. I mean, we've been approaching some people and we may get a type of script out of that.
Okay.
But people talk about humanizing Arabs and Palestinians. I mean, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's important I think the music in the game is possibly going to be the biggest hitter. I mean, it would be great if our plot and story end up being, the thing that people remember and that, they hold dear. But I think the music alone is enough to prove to people like this region has an immense amount of creative talent in it that is, regardless of religion, really. I mean, it's
Sure.
And it's both dependent on and independent of religion to a degree. I mean, there's Mashrou Leila. I mean, in one of their music videos, the description for it, they were talking about like their version of feminism versus like a hyper secularized Western,
maybe the Western, yeah,
right. I mean, that's literally in the description of their video.
Really.
Yeah, it is. It's in Roman by Mashrou Leila.
Their videos are great. I just remember that. Their videos are amazing. I forgot about that. They have great. I can link to some of those in the description.
You saw the Radio Romance video, didn't you? The animated one.
Maybe it's called Radio Romance.
Yeah, Radio Romance. It is animated by a French, possibly Algerian. He's definitely French and probably in Paris. The
Okay,
animator is, but he was
I
working.
haven't seen that. It looks really cool.
It's
I'll watch that
amazing.
after.
It's possibly one of the best animated music videos ever. Really,
Really.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not perfect, but it is very fucking good, and an extremely good example of just like art and music coming together to amplify an Arab voice, and it being it really just changes your entire perspective on what the region is or sounds like, or what sort of emotions and thoughts and feelings and experiences are coming through. And they are, of course, a queer oriented band, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the emotions that they're accessing are by no means limited to that. So
That's cool. I saw them in San Francisco way before I went to Beirut. Maybe not way before, but they were even live. They were fun. They were great.
I would imagine. Yeah, Hamed Sino, he was the frontman.
Yeah.
He's continued working on other projects, but he's amazing. I mean, he seems like basically Freddie Mercury and reincarnated.
That's kind of the vibe. A very Freddie Mercury vibe. That's a good way to put it. The Freddie Mercury of Lebanon. Yeah. I did want to, so I was in Cairo in October, and I met a few people, including this woman, Amy Mwafi, who she and her brothers run a thing called Mo4 Networks, which is actually quite big. It's like a large Egyptian media organization. Mm-hmm. So she's like the founding partner and CEO. I was just going to read for, I guess, listeners. I was talking to her about, so their content is very like lifestyle, quote unquote, like design, tech, entrepreneurship, home decor, food, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I was asking her like why they thought it was important to start their kind of thing, because a lot of it is like in English. It's kind of aimed at like, I would say probably like middle and upper class Egyptians in the diaspora.
Yeah.
So people are like Arab diaspora generally. And so just like asking her like why they did it. And she said, our kind of MO has always been that I grew up in the West. I grew up in the UK, my brothers as well. And I, as someone who's a storyteller, long before the invention of social media. And so the only stories that I was being told about Egypt, about the Middle East, were obviously through a Western mediated lens. On one side of the equation, anything to do with Egypt was about the pharaohs. And then 9/11 happens. All the stories they're being told are about, the big bad Arabs. And there's no real representation of what it means to be Egyptian or what it means to be Arab beyond that. So it's always been, my greatest passion to be able to tell the stories of the artists and entrepreneurs and the musicians. So she said that was basically the starting point. I just really like that. She's like, it's not just the big bad Arabs, like the pharaohs or the scary guys, like the terrorists. And I mean, I think it's a lot of value in that. And I mean, I think part of like your game, that's kind of what it's probably doing. Or hoping to do.
No, I think honestly, the music alone, if we get the money for it, but even some of the smaller artists that we're approaching who have, there's one group in the West Bank that actually gave us their music, and it's like chill wave stuff from the West Bank, basically. I mean, there's going to be such a diversity of genres, mediums, and and so many emotions and just ways of communicating what the fuck the human experiences.
Sure.
And it's in its own flavor, of course, but it's a very there's a lot of flavors of humanity in here, that's for sure.
Have you read, do you know, by the way, that Ta-Nehisi Coates' The Message?
I haven't actually read it yet, but I do need
I'm halfway. It's really good. I finally started it. It's quick, so it's like it's 4 essays, and the last one is about Israel Palestine, like it's the longest. Yeah. But it's really, I mean, the whole thing's really good. And like what I hadn't realized, like I think all the interviews with him I'd seen about this were very much just focused on the Israel-Palestine part, right? And like a lot of them were accusing him of anti-Semitism, all this crazy stuff.
You see that one, I think it was an ABC interview or CBS interview with him, where the network,
the backpack thing
for it afterwarst, but
yeah, he's like, oh, this is the kind of book you would find in like a left-wing terrorist. Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh my god. So it got missed in that. Like I was confused. I was curious why the book was called The Message, and a big part of it is like it is Ta-Nehisi Coates who like teaches writing, like speaking to his students, and speaking to like aspiring writers to be like, there's value in doing this, and there's power in like writing things that shape. He talks about this idea I think about a lot, which was like Steve Bannon says it of all people, that it came from Andrew Breitbart, which is like politics flows downstream from culture, right? Like culture enables a type of politics that like it is imaginative space for politics. And like he talks about that a lot in the book anyway. I thought it was just really thinking about your game, which is like a form of art, I would say. And that's a lot of what like Ta-Nehisi Coates talks about, just like the importance of kind of writing about this stuff and like talking about it. It can seem very small or stupid, but it creates the space where politics can kind of happen. And like, I like that a lot. I thought that was just really nice.
Yeah, I think he probably does have a handle on, just like seeing the overall picture, and he's one of our national treasures for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's an amazing writer. So we can wrap up soon. I did want to ask, like, what is the state of the game now, and kind of what are you looking for? Like, you had mentioned, if you can just say again, like, you're kind of looking to hire people or at least have people come on, and probably funding, I think, right?
Yeah, so finding funding would be, a godsend, and there's a few people I'm talking to about that, but we need about $20,000 to like get this thing to at least I think we could finish a first episode of the game, like episode 1, and then that'd be like a maybe 3 to 5 hour experience.
Okay.
It wouldn't be the cost of a full game. It would just be a fraction of that. But yeah, if we got that, we'd just start hiring artists and coders, and we try to restrict it to Gazans.
Okay.
Just go from there. But yeah, we've needed money for a while. I got little bits of money. There have been a lot of people who have expressed interest in doing this. I think it's maybe easier to sell now that the project is farther along.
Sure.
And I am trying to get to like a first full demo level.
Okay.
Which is going to take some time, just because there's just so much. It does take some time to build levels. So like right now, finishing up a demo level, getting a writer to do like a 45 to 60 page script treatment.
Okay.
And then hopefully finding partners to do a Kickstarter with.
Cool.
That would be a big thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Like we need to get stuff together for a Kickstarter, basically.
Got it. You guys do have this GoFundMe up. Are you still taking?
Yeah, we are.
That'd just be like donations basically, but.
Yeah, and it would be, and we're going to provide updates on that. We just made sure that people knew that it's going to be going to Saad's family now.
Okay, he's the guy in Gaza. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We were also taking donations for one Lebanese family. I went ahead and just gave them $5,000 out of pocket to try to relocate to Turkey for a while.
Wow.
But they're coming back now with the ceasefire. So
that's good. Okay, yeah, that's good. Where is the best place for people to kind of find and follow this stuff and like learn more about you or learn what you're looking for?
Yeah, mostly the Instagram. We just have we have an Instagram. It's just Palestine Skating Game on Instagram.
Okay, super. That's what I figured, but just making sure there's no other on the Instagram. That's it.
Yeah. Well, we have a Twitter as well. I'm active on the Twitter, but the Instagram is probably the best place for the moment. And yeah, that GoFundMe link would be a good place for things. We're going to try to have the Kickstarter up soon, but I think it's going to at least be a month or two out. And we're hoping that that the other Palestine game team. You know about this? The other Palestine.
No. There's another Palestine game.
Yeah, there is. They actually just launched on Thanksgiving, and they just raised $200,000 in 40 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it skating or is it a different game?
No, it's basically a pseudo 3D stealth game.
Oh.
What's
that mean? Like shooting?
No, it's not. It's
like airplanes?
You're hiding from like soldiers and stuff. And I believe that there's it's set in 1948. You're a Palestinian refugee just like trying to find your way back from crisis, basically, I guess.
Interesting.
Maybe resettle in Lebanon or something. That seems to be the thrust of the game, basically.
Huh. I think yours sounds more like whimsical and fun, for what it's worth. Punk music and the skateboarding.
Yeah, they've definitely got good art, at least. It is headed up by some really cool people. Rami Ismail is basically advising on it. And, the fact is that the guy who's leading it, he's from the West Bank, and he made one other game called Leila and the Shadows of War.
Okay.
These are not, I think you're right. I mean, obviously a whimsical game. There's going to be elements of whimsy in their games for sure, because they're going to be setting some of it in like pre-1948 times and just showing what did an Arab street look like with like bustling streets.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And stuff. Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a society there, of course, before 1948, and they're going to show that.
I do like that. That's cool. Just to remind people, it wasn't just like blank.
Yeah. I just think we're probably going to be better positioned to talk about what does Arab culture more broadly look like. And
if you have the music and stuff from different places.
Yeah. And I mean, as good as their game is going to be, I do not think they're not really going to be able to have a modern soundtrack. They're probably not going to tap Mashrou Leila for anything, Yeah,
that's true.
Given the look of the team and the overall tone of the game, it's probably going to be a more conservative,
subdued,
and more. It's not all going to be subdued. They've got some really great art, and I think they will try for some good music. But I have a feeling that they may not choose. I don't know if they'll have any like Beirut bands
Sure.
that are modern and.
I guess that's why I mean subdued. Like, I guess I was just thinking like older school.
Yeah.
Like I've listened to a lot of like older school like Arab and Turkish music and stuff, and it's more.
Yeah.
It's not
yeah.
Mashrou Leila, I guess. Like it's not rock. I mean, some of it is, but like a lot of it.
There's definitely some good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to have stuff from like Egyptian electro shabby people and,
Cool.
you know, possibly like electro funk from Istanbul.
That sounds great.
It's
I would
just,
play that just for the music.
it's a very different feel whenever you start getting into some of the really harder core electronic stuff that's in the Arabic world today.
Well, do you have anything you want to add, Justin, before we end?
No, just, you know, we're looking for writers, filmmakers, creative directors, art leads. You know, I'm still going to be there to like transition the project, but we do need someone to take over really as like a creative director.
Cool.
And, you know, we're hoping to find some of those people. So,
All right. So if anyone knows anyone, if you are someone, you know, we'll have the Instagram up.
yeah.
Please, people, go donate. You know, even a little bit can't hurt. Help a guy in Saad and Gaza.
We're going to try to, you know, hire some folks from there in a long-term way,
Cool.
and, you know, a sustainable way. So,
yeah, amazing.
and if anyone does know investors, yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be like $20,000 to $25,000 to get to a first episode. So,
Investors, of course. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll have all that info up. Thank you, Justin. I really appreciate it.
yeah, no, thanks, Ted.
Well, that's it. Thank you so much, Justin. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We really appreciate it. Thanks for everyone who's worked on this game. Thanks to Doa, who I know made a lot of early stuff happen, even if she's not involved anymore. Again, it sounds like grovelly, but it really does. It means a lot. If you appreciated this, we love subscriptions. If you're willing to share it with people, rate, review, comment, anything, right? Engagement is the thing. So we really appreciate it. If you want to sign up, it's webandworld.substack.com. And it really does help us grow and find new people. And again, just makes it feel like I'm not just putting this content out into like a black hole in the world, which is rough. So thanks, everyone. Stay sane this year and for the next 4. And we'll talk to you again next time. Bye.